Welcome to Commander Central. Today we are going to be talking about the top 20 cards most in need of a reprint. If anyone doesn't want to wait until the end, spoiler alert, number one on this list is Cancel. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Spoiler alert, it is not Cancel.
No, it's Shatter.
Right.
Manolith.
Explosive vegetation. Yeah. Welcome back, gentlemen. It's been a while since we've sat face to face and recorded one of these.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it because we've had three shows we've had shows that have come out weekly, but we kind of slacked off
for the
a
holidays.
few weeks. Holidays. I moved, so we had a lot going on. So even though we had shows coming out, we really haven't been recording in a couple weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
I think I lost my touch on making my notes because I went way in depth on some of these. I really didn't have to.
Well, I finalized my move, and I think it was you that asked me, Max, how it went and how I was feeling. And I was like, man, there's a big difference between moving at age 30 and moving at age 40. My body felt it way differently. But then, so I told you that, though then I got thinking about it. The last time I moved, I was like, I don't remember being this sore or being like in pain after physically moving. But the last time I did this...
You would have been in your late 20s?
No, I would have been in my mid-30s, but... that was the time my cat bit my finger. And I will relay the story briefly. It'll just take a minute. As I was moving, like the last thing we were doing in the house, we went and got our pets. I picked up the cat, and the dog was kind of going schizo because there had been movers all day and kind of was jumping up at the cat, and the cat freaked out and bit me. So we had just finished, so like I went and washed my finger out with Gatorade or whatever it was that I had lying around in the house because we didn't have bandages, were all gone. I didn't have like antiseptic. I'm not joking. I used Gatorade because that's what I had around.
It works.
Yeah, I mean it's what plants crave. So I went back home and like to the new house. I showered, went to bed, and woke up at like 6 a.m. and my finger is like the size of a bratwurst. It's all swollen up. Like, ugh, all right, it must have got an infection from the Gatorade, I don't know, or whatever. So I went into the ER thinking I should get it dealt with, and I thought it would be no big deal. I actually hooked the trailer up to my vehicle because I was going to make a swing to the hardware store afterwards to pick up some shelves to put up in the basement. And I got in there, and the nurse looked at it, and she called a doctor, and he's like, okay, we're going to need to get you in surgery in the next hour or two, or you're probably going to lose your finger. So I had to have my finger surgery, actually like they had to, because cats, when they bite you, there's some kind of thing in their saliva that when it gets into the muscles causes rot of some sort.
Venom.
Yeah, basically, essentially, yes. So they had to clean it all out, and I had to have surgery. So then I'm like, well, that's probably why I don't remember being in pain last time, is because for like the 3 days after I finished moving, I was hopped up on painkillers.
You didn't save any for this time?
I did not, and I should have, apparently, in hindsight.
Oh, man, save them for that long. They'd be real potent.
Right.
Or just done and not worth anything.
Right. So, any fun games in the last week or two that you guys have played? Because I have not been playing much.
I lost my Alesha deck.
Like, literally?
I don't know where it is. I looked all over my house for it, and I can't find it.
Oh, no.
It's in a green satin tower, like a lime green satin tower. And I think it's somewhere jammed in my basement underneath a whole bunch of stuff. Because we did all the Christmas stuff, and everything's just trashed down there.
I suppose.
So I got to
so you
clean
didn't
and
lose
find
it. You didn't lose it like on the side of the road or in a card shop somewhere.
It's somewhere in my
GP.
house. I just
All
have to
right.
find it.
You didn't leave it at GP in Milwaukee.
No. Because I was going to play on Tuesday, and I couldn't find the deck. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not playing.
That's a sign from Richard Garfield. You should be playing.
I played the last few weeks, had good games. Nothing super interesting, I guess.
You said you saw a deck kind of blow up this week.
I did. So my MVP cards for this week, I have two of them. The first one is the combo of the new Niv Mizzet and 1,000 Year Storm.
Ugh.
That turn, he played Capture of Jingzhou. Went to his next turn, and our buddy's like, do you have a way to bring that back? He goes, yes, I do. He said, yep, we're just all going to scoop now because you're just going to... We essentially all died to a lightning bolt copied like 13 times or something like that. And we're all at low enough life totals where I think 5 would have killed us all.
He basically winds up being Mizzix that you can't counterspell and is tougher to remove. And yeah, he's a really
anything that
strong
goes to
commander.
remove them, they automatically net a card. And
Yeah, he's pretty strong. I mean, that casting cost is a pain in the butt, which we commented on, and play style, he's essentially the same as the other guys, except for he's just better.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
and he's
that's
only like a
deck.
$2 or $3 card, I think, too. So.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising. But I think people haven't been inspired to build it because he's not like, unique over the other Niv Mizzets. So like if the other ones didn't catch your interest, you maybe didn't build him.
I'm waiting for the next Ravnica set because I think he might spike in price once Azorius comes out.
I'll be curious to see how that goes.
Jeskai
too.
control through the
Jeskai
roof.
can go harder.
My other one is Experimental Frenzy. We've talked about that card a lot on the show in the past couple months. I finally got it out in my Tajik deck at a buddy's house for a Friendsgiving, and I think I went every turn I played 2 or 3 cards off the top of my deck, and
nuts.
always drew. One of them was always a land. Drew a land for turn, played the land, the next land. Oh, there's a 1-drop. There's a 2-drop. Okay, pass the turn. Did find out a nice Nombo, though, with it's no longer in the deck. Sunbird's Invocation.
Okay.
Because Sunbird's reads cast from hand, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't work anymore. But
you're going to pull that from the deck
yep,
anyway.
And it did get pulled shortly after that when I finally got around to making tweaks to the deck.
Yeah, I just did. One of the writers in EDH Rec sent a thing out to all the writers today saying he's going to do a year-end article on everyone's top 10 cards from the year. And literally the first one I put on my list as I was like, okay, well, let's do the list quick, was Experimental Frenzy was the first one I put down. Because number one, it's fresh in my head, but number two, it's like just such a strong card, particularly in those colors that need that card.
Yep.
So that was, definitely made my list for sure. We have a few housekeeping things we wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
Rasputin Dreamweaver. We got hit up a bunch on this on Twitter. We thought we were so clever as the show was progressing to figure out why was it Panharmonicon?
Panharmonicon was in the deck, yep.
And our thought, we all like kind of were like, what? Oh yeah, that's because of the triggers. And it doesn't actually work that way, so.
It's more like a clone. It just comes in with them.
So we were right the first time that maybe it wasn't that great in the deck.
It was right before the 7-minute gap I cut off.
Right before we overthought it, yeah. We had a couple notes on the Sunforger show. One person, Nate Burgess, mentioned it has nice synergy with Isochron Scepter in those decks. Not that they work together, but like if you're going to run a dozen cards for Sunforger, they tend to be also ones you can oftentimes put underneath an Isochron Scepter, which we should have mentioned as well. So that's a nice little bit of synergy there. And Cameron from Lab Maniacs just mentioned that you can magically hack the colors on Sunforger itself. So where it says you can search the library for a white or red spell. If you're playing in a deck that has access to blue, you can change your Sunforger to say blue if you happen to be doing that kind of thing. I don't know what deck would be doing that, but that would be pretty awesome to do, I think.
It'd be your buddies that came up a couple years ago with his unsleeved 93 EDH
with his
deck.
Super old school deck, because I think he actually
he played Magical Hack.
He had Magical Hack and Sleight of Mind in that deck, so yeah.
And a Tundra and
unsleeved. Oh, that was painful. It was cool to see though.
And back then, Tundra was only like what $150 card. Now it's like a $300 card.
Yeah.
So
he had a Library of Alexandria in that deck too. He showed me later on that was unsleeved.
Oh, I feel like I just got kicked in the man area.
And here's the thing. Here's the comment he made about it too. He's like, I probably should put sleeves in these because this library is, I think it's like $25 or $30 when I got it. So like he was concerned about it being a $30 card. Like, no, that ship has sailed.
At that point, I would have been like, I'll pay you.
Did you tell him how much it was?
And it's banned. But no, I did at the time. Like, I think I said it was like, it's over $1,000.
I would have walked up to him and been like, I'll give you $100 now for it.
Like, here's $50.
Did you have any other? I think you had another note on Sunforger.
I do have a note on Sunforger, and this is more directed towards Chris.
Bring it, homie. How's
your Ramos Sunforger deck going? Because last week you said it'd be done by the end of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I am such a lazy person.
It's next to your Alessia deck in the basement.
No, Ramos is still in my binder. That's how lazy I am. The rest of the cards are all stacked up, but Ramos is still in the binder.
He's too busy playing Arena.
Arena and Standard, which I can't seem to get down for some reason. I don't know.
But my other note is our good friend Raphael.
Oh, God, no.
Patreon supporter Raphael.
Patreon supporter Raphael.
I love you, Raphael.
You definitely will when I'm about to tell you this. He's mailing me 2 altars of Sunforger for you, and they both have Thor's hammer on them in different angles.
Nice.
So he sent me.
I saw him post the pictures on Twitter of those.
Yep, he sent me the final images last night.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've been contemplating on running Sunforger and Alessia too.
Yeah.
Just because I run Stoneforge Mystic as well, which will allow me to tutor it and go ham.
There you go. So you'll have your pick of which one you want, and I think we'll give the other one away as a prize.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Raph.
Yeah.
We also want to mention that we got mentioned on Command Zone episode 243. They did like a shout out to a bunch of content creators, and us and CCO and like Brothers War podcast and a handful of other Commander centric podcasts all got a little bit of screen time or air time on the Command Zone. That was a very nice thing for them to do. We really appreciated that.
Yes, thank you, Josh and DJ.
Absolutely. It got us a bunch of interactions on Twitter with people. Listens went way up. I think all the podcasts they mentioned, all the Commander ones, wound up in the top
25 for like a week on iTunes.
Just from being mentioned in Command Zone. So that was cool. Thank you guys very much for that. We appreciate it.
And thank you for everybody who heard us on there and are now listening to us. So we appreciate everybody who's listening to us.
Although it was kind of an unfortunate timing just because we usually don't do that many deck techs. We usually do shows more like this. And we had 2 deck techs during that swing that they were listening just because it was Thanksgiving. But
yeah, I think they actually...
That's what happens when holidays hit.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think they actually just mentioned our Sunforger show.
They did, yeah.
So that was a good one to go back to.
Well, if you want to reach out to us and give us a shout out or do anything, where would you find us on the interwebs, Chris?
You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. And I am actually become more active on the Twitter birds.
You have been on Twitter a little bit lately.
You have. You almost made me die at my lunch last week when I saw you reply to one of my tweets.
Your text to me is like, oh, I choked on my coffee. You can find us on Facebook by searching us CMDR Central. YouTube search is CMDR Central. Now on YouTube, just for everyone to know, that's mainly just our content and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's basically just the podcast with like a static image. The plan is to change that in the relatively near future. Probably we're going to start working on video content first half of 2019.
Yeah.
But
the very first episode, I'm totally going to wear my cheese head and hope the CCO guys attack me.
You absolutely should.
No, they're my friends now.
And then you can find us online at cmdrcentral.com.
And we are also on Patreon by searching CMDR Central, and we have a plethora of new people to announce that have supported us.
Yes, we do.
Over our hiatus.
Is that your word for the day? Plethora?
It is now.
The word of the day calendar he got for his first gift of Christmas.
Okay, sure. Hanukkah starts in like a couple days.
That's true. That was maybe in your advent calendar or something.
Beer advent calendars. I should get one of those this year.
I don't think an advent calendar starts till December 1st anyways.
I think that's...
So we wanted to say thank you for supporting us to Jose Barajas, Adam Mitchell, Dustin St. Wright, Simone Casolo, and Jake Kitzmiller, and I apologize for every one of those names I just butchered.
I bet we
finally names to butcher. Yes,
I bet 2 of them were right. That's what we're going to shoot for. There is 2 of the 5 are correct.
That's still failing.
And Patreon supporters can come hang out with us in Slack and talk. I've been quiet the last 3 weeks, and I kept feeling bad about it because I've been doing moving stuff. And then I check and see, there was 500 messages today. So apparently people were
we lived without you. It's okay.
Managing without me is as shocked as I am.
Slack.
We're easing you in. You're just starting with Twitter. We'll get you there eventually.
Twitter's more fun because then I can read all the crazy stuff that goes on from like other people.
Oh, there's crazy stuff in Slack. You just
I love the people.
Right.
I literally follow only football personalities and Magic personalities, and you wouldn't believe how similar all these people are. It's quite amusing.
So is Cassius Marsh the kind of the intersection between the football personalities and the Magic personalities there? He's the only one
where the Venn diagram interacts.
It would be,
yeah.
Although a lot of NFL players actually do watch anime, which I'm a huge anime fan myself. So
you can talk to Chris about anime on Twitter.
Absolutely, there you go.
Yeah, it's on my profile. It literally says anime and the outdoors and my huge spectrum of likes.
Nice. We're also on flipsidegaming.com. You can find our podcasts there. And if you use promo code CMDR in all caps, you'll get 10% off your order. And a little bit of that comes back to help us here in the Dungeon of Doom.
Keeps the lights on.
Yep.
And you can use that to get 10% off your experimental frenzy that you should be putting in your Boros deck for sure.
Or any of the cards we're going to mention later on in the show.
Before they go up even more because they didn't get a reprint. And if you do decide to buy a Ultimate Masters box, they all come with a really cool box topper. But if you don't buy one and you still want to get a box topper, we may have a way to do that.
We do. So typically this would be the episode where we announce our contest winners for November.
But we still have a few days left in November as of recording this.
Right. So we're going to be announcing that next week, the winners for the dice set for Patreon.
Which is beautiful, by the way.
It is gorgeous. It's a white with the gold trim on all the die.
Yeah, they really look sharp.
Just a heads up, don't ever throw them on top of paper because they're very sharp.
They will go through.
And then our Twitter winner is going to get that oversized Jazwan Jaguar.
Yes, indeed.
So those will be announced next week.
The comically oversized
Yes.
Ajwan Jaguar.
So, but for the December contests, we're going to announce those this week so everybody can get ready for it. So for Patreon, if you join and are still a subscriber by the end of December, you'll be entered in to win an Ultimate Masters
Box
topper donated by friend of the show and Patreon supporter Dan Mell.
Yes, indeed. So we will send you an unopened box topper to the winner.
I love Dan brought this up to me last week, I think it was, and his exact wording to me was, he goes, I know if I open it, it's going to be Stirring Wildwood, and I'm going to be so mad, so I don't even want to deal with it.
Well, we really appreciate that, Dan. Thank you very much. And one of you lucky Patreon supporters will also get to appreciate Dan because he's going to send you what I'm betting is probably a Noble Hierarch.
And then he'll be even more frustrated.
Right. Then he'll be really mad. He didn't consider that part of the equation. He thought about about being mad if it was a Wildwood. Yep. He didn't think what would happen if it was a Karn.
And then for Twitter, for the December giveaway, we are going to be giving away a pack of the Dragon Shield inner sleeves. So the people who like to double sleeve their decks, these are great.
Although I believe they're the side loaders, I believe.
And then we're also going to be giving away one of the few Vanguard cards Dana found while moving.
I did.
From Dana's Crazy Collection Adventures.
I did. So we have some Vanguard cards we'll send your way as well.
And the hashtag to use and to retweet is, and Chris, as everybody has known, has complained that I always pick the hashtags.
So Chris gets to pick this time.
I gave Chris 2 days to come up with this, and his hashtag is?
Hashtag CMDR. Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
All right. I'm on board both with the hashtag and the sentiment.
Yes, me too.
I watch it every year, and my wife laughs at me.
They're actually the university is showing Die Hard December 19th here as a Christmas movie, and I bought tickets to it yesterday for my family.
Very nice.
So
sweet.
Hashtag,
I now have a machine gun.
Oh. And I actually referenced that on Twitter the other day too for something. Yeah, I did. All right, gentlemen, is there anything else before we move on to cards that badly need a reprint? I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right, full speed ahead. Ultimate Master spoilers have been out for a while, and they are pretty absurd. I think we all agree that this is the best looking Master set, just period.
For rares, anyways.
I mean, I think Matt Morgan did some breakdown in the EDH Rec cast this week, and you can take any 2 previous Master sets and shuffle them together, and it still has less value than UMA. So any ones you want to combine still get you less value cards.
And I think he included Battle Bond in that as well.
Yeah, he was factoring in Battle Bond and
everything all the way back to the first Modern Masters.
Yeah, he skipped the first Modern Masters because it was
that one's kind of hard because
all
the rares in there, like
everything
engineering explosives, all that stuff, were so expensive at the time.
Right, or at the time they weren't that bad, but since then they've gotten huge. So, it's disgusting. But there are a few cards that made it through unreprinted in UMA, and they've just made it through all the master sets without getting printed. So we're going to go over 20 cards today that are in dire need of a reprint, and we threw a few rules down here because, yes, Liliana the Veil could be reprinted in every set.
She will never drop in price.
I mean, you can say it needs a reprint, but like we're just talking cards. The criteria we have is cards that haven't had a printing in the last 15 years.
In a pack.
So there's like 1 or 2 of these had a Judge foil, I believe. But we're talking about cards that actually showed up in a pack haven't showed up in a pack in the last 15 years, making them difficult to find and in many cases pricey as well. Obviously, reserve list cards here are making the cut. These are things that could conceivably have shown up in the set, and we just need to see more copies. There's no particular order on this list, so we're just going to go through it alphabetically, I guess, rather than rank it by importance.
Thank you. Because that's how I did my notes, alphabetically. I didn't want to have to scroll through everyone and try to find it.
And we can start with Max. What's the first card?
So the first card on our list of 20 is Carpet of Flowers. This was originally printed back in Urza's Saga 20 years ago.
And has not seen a printing since then.
Jeez. So the current price when these notes were created was around $9.
Yep.
And it's in roughly 4,200 decks on EDH Rec.
I put one of these in my Sigarda Enchantress deck shortly after I built it. It wasn't like the first draft, but I added it shortly thereafter when it was like a 50-cent card or 40-cent card or something. And I remember at the time being like, oh, wow, this is 50 cents. I should make a mental note to pull all of them out of bulk whenever I buy a collection or something. And at 50 cents, I was surprised. It's closing in on $10 now. I would say any Enchantress deck for sure probably would run this. And we just had 3 new Enchantress commanders that came out, which is probably part of the reason it's popped up in price. But if you're playing green, it's just not a bad card in general. 1 mana to put down an enchantment that during your main phase you may add mana of 1 card in your mana pool or X's number of islands target opponent controls. I mean, occasionally you're going to have a game where there's no one playing blue, but that's not that common. And there's also those games where the mono blue player plays and you drop this in turn 6 and you're just getting 6 mana a turn off it. And in an Enchantress deck, even the beauty there is, okay, if there's no blue players, you're still probably going to draw a card off it.
Right.
It's a really, really useful card that being, 20 years old since a reprint and being up $9, I'd like to see it show back up in a master set here very quickly.
I'd like to see it get reprinted in the Garul deck for the new Ravnica.
The guild kits?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Very easily it could.
That would be actually really cool to see that show up there.
Because they're red and green's big mana usually.
Yeah.
So this would definitely help with it.
Chris, number 2 on our list.
We have the wonderful Concordant Crossroads. For those of you that don't know, this is a world enchantment, so this is going to affect every player.
Yep.
1 green, and it gives all creatures haste. Printed twice, once in Legends and once in Chronicles. 4,000 decks overall in EDH Rec have it. Now, there is a hefty price difference between these 2 cards.
Yes.
So we're looking at like close to $120 for Legends and $15 for Chronicles.
Stupid white border.
And it's just because of white border.
Right. Although 15 is not nothing. Like that's a decent amount of money as well. For the white border Chronicles reprint, it's still $15 and 24 years since we've seen this card in print.
Yep. I'm completely fine with it getting a reprint for black border. But at $15 for white border, I think that's perfectly fine for how powerful this card actually is.
And it is in green, being able to give creatures haste. Like I've seen it kind of screw people over before when they don't know how to do it. You don't play this
on turn 1.
You don't play it like Fervor where you just play it and take advantage of it. You play this when you're going to kill people with those tokens you just made off of Avenger of Zendikar or whatever. But it's super strong.
I definitely think it needs a reprint because I have not seen a whole lot of them. I know our store personally has 1.
Is there only 1 in the case?
Yep, and it's white border, and I thought it was way more expensive than what it is, so I might end up just going and buying it tonight.
It's such a useful card.
After I went through prices, I'm like, $15, I'll go buy that right now.
Right?
Yeah, that's why. And it could, at 15, it's cheap enough. It could conceivably show up in like a Commander Precon or something. I would guess we would never see it in a core set because it's such a weird...
I think it would hurt Standard too much.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing for green to have, too.
Yep.
I think this would be a really interesting card for like a Battle Bond set because it's going to affect both teams.
And, yeah, that's a good point. And it's also like in those games, they don't seem to mind throwing the rules to the wind a little bit as well, so it could definitely show up.
It's all about having fun and seeing what kind of weird interactions are going to happen.
Yeah. All right, number 3 on the list, Deserted Temple. First reprinted in Odyssey 17 years ago. It is a land that you can tap for colorless mana, or you can spend 1 to untap target land. Sitting at $13 now, and it's in about 4,400 decks on EDH Rec. This was actually the one you guys both mentioned before we started recording that this was the one you probably would like the least on the list.
Yeah.
And this was the one I thought about the most too before adding it. It is really good in that certain if you're running a Sarah Sanctum,
narrow,
but it's
opinion.
narrow.
Yep.
But it's also drifted up. $13 for a land that doesn't do anything itself. It's that broken, and it is useful. I do like it.
It would be interesting to watch someone have a Maze of Ith out, have this out, and then play a Vesuva, copy it, and untap Maze of Ith twice, and do it to 3
there's
creatures.
A lot of hijinks you can do with this.
Right. Or untapping your Guy's Cradle, or your
Cabal Coffers, or your Nykthos, or your where I've seen this play the most is in mono black decks that tend to have Coffers and tend to have Nykthos. They probably have Cabal Stronghold now in a lot of those decks. They're oftentimes running the copy spells to copy those lands, so Deserted Temple is just one more way to break that.
This is definitely another card that I haven't seen a whole lot of. So I wonder if it is just really hard to find.
Yeah, like have you ever seen one in a binder? I can't think of ever, or in a store shelf for the most part. I don't know if
I'm literally at our store every day, help out there, and I've yet to see one come through the store.
I have owned one of these for about 6 months of my entire Magic career, and it was a foil one.
Oh,
because
nice.
Back in my heavy trading days, I needed something to even out a trade, and that was probably, I think the foil at that time was like $10.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, I'll just take it. It's a good card. I might find a use for it, and then I traded it away when the price doubled. So I'm like, okay,
and
cool.
I didn't even look to see what the foil was. It's probably something absurd.
Right. So, I had one. I never used it, but I did have one for a short period of my Magic career.
Number 4, Max.
Dong Zhao, the Tyrant. This is a legendary creature, human soldier from Portal 3 Kingdoms, so that's 19 years old.
Dang, that's a while ago.
For those who don't know, since it is a very unique card from a very unique set, when Dong Zhao, the Tyrant, enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls deals damage equal to its power to that player.
And that's a pretty weird, unique ability for mono red.
Right.
Like it's not a broken card. I don't even know if it's necessarily that strong, but it's a kind of a unique thing that nothing else in red is going to do on a body. And if you want to build this creature, it's a $70 commander right now.
Yeah.
And the ability doesn't warrant that. It's just rarity entirely.
Yeah. We've all played against a Dong Zhao deck
There was
before.
a deck in the shop a few years back that used to come through, and it was fine. I actually remember thinking at the time, though, he would have been better off with Heartless.
Hidesuku.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
I think Max nailed it. I think it is
Hidesuku.
All right, you got it. I'm not gonna try it again. I'm just gonna mangle it. But yeah, I thought that probably would do a similar thing if you just want to spread around damage. But it's a neat card, and it's definitely not one you're gonna find in a binder.
This is definitely one that I foresee if they do reprint, it's gonna be mythic. And you're going to crack it and be just absolutely upset about
Furious
it.
when
you
get
the new
it
Comet Storm.
Yeah, and the price absolutely bombs.
Yep.
Because they've done that a few times with a few of those bad portal commanders like
Kong Ming.
Yeah, or Huatu Honor Physician was just in a commander deck, and at the time it was like a $30 card, and it's like $2 now.
Yeah.
So it will definitely crash, but it just there's no way to get one for the most part right now if you want to try this deck, and it'd be nice to get a few more copies out there.
Yeah. I think the best memory I have playing against this deck was I had a Sarah's Avatar, the one where your life total is its power and toughness. And they're like, okay, I cast my commander and you're dead.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm like, oh.
I should have thought that
I should have thought that through. Yeah. Granted, that was like, that was back when we all first started playing together, so that was some years ago.
I haven't seen a Sarah Ascendant in a long time
I haven't either.
Sarah's Avenger or Avatar is what it is.
Sarah's the Avatar.
Yeah.
Sarah Ascendant, I play that in Jamocha. You see it all the time.
Number 5, Chris.
Food Chain. Bad card. We're done. What's the next one?
Moving on. Number 6.
No, Food Chain. So I'm assuming most people know what this is. It's a 3-mana enchantment that says I'm in a combo right now.
I'm going to win the game.
It says I'm playing Prosh and I'm just going to win.
Yep. So pretty much it reads, remove a creature you control from the game, add X mana of any color to your mana pool where X is the removed creature's converted mana cost +1. This mana can only be used to cast creature spells. So this is from Mercedes Masks, which I totally misspelled in my notes. Wow. 2,000 decks on EDH Rec, and I'm assuming, I didn't actually look at, because you gave us the numbers for like EDH Rec.
Yeah.
I'm assuming most of those are probably combo-based decks.
A ton of them are Prosh decks. A ton of them are, I think it was Solvala decks. It was almost all things that were doing combo stuff.
Yep. But the price tag on this thing is a lot higher than I thought it was.
Yeah.
$42 for this thing.
Well, this is one of those cards I think back to basics where everyone thought it was in the reserved list, and it is not. It's reprintable. This is one of the few ones that kind of skated through UMA. This has just not had a reprint in 19 years since we've seen this card.
This is one that if it does see a reprint, I bet you it just tanks in price hard because it's a very narrow card that you're going to only play in certain circumstances in certain decks. It's not going to go into every type of deck.
This isn't a card that a casual player just puts into a deck just for the fun of it.
Because it exiles the creature. It doesn't actually put it in the graveyard. So you're losing it forever.
Right. Yeah, you're running this in a combo deck, and that's for the most part pretty much it. This isn't like a sack outlet that you can just use for that purpose. It's a combo engine, but it's a
it should just never be reprinted, though, in my opinion, because I don't want to see it's not a particular John and Sue having this card and going combo.
Well, right, it's not a card that you probably see in casual EDH.
Yep.
And for the most part, the guys that are playing competitive EDH, playing CEDH, understand that they're just going to have to pay money for cards too. I think like they are much less concerned about a card being $40 than the casual people playing kitchen table Magic who probably don't care about this card anyway.
The only downfall I see to this card getting a reprint is the fact that it becomes available to new players who are going to go that route and are going to create, getting arguments with people and other stuff like that, and might even push them away from the game.
Well, or they just wind up mad because they crack it in their Ultimate Masters 2 box, and I'm like, well, I can't. What am I going to do with this? I can't do anything with it.
I think along the lines of like the newer players getting their hands on this is they aren't experienced enough to know how this card works.
Okay.
So they're just going to put it in any deck and think, like you said, they're going to think it's just a normal sack outlet when it's not. It's
right.
This card has a very specific purpose in the EDH decks it's in the Legacy decks it's in. Like, this is how you win a game.
Yep.
And a newer player to EDH opening this and putting it in their Commander 20 precon because, it's an elf tribal deck or whatever.
I can just make a whole bunch of mana. What are you going to do with that
Exactly.
mana?
Right. Yeah.
And it's only castable for creature spells. So
yes.
Craterhoof isn't good when you have no one to have Craterhoof.
Exactly. Yep. Number 6 on the list, Glimpse of Nature.
Pause. Why do you get the card that you run in Recce?
I didn't plan this. I just started it off with rotating around the table, and we come to Glimpse of Nature. It's entirely innocent. For those who don't know, Glimpse of Nature is a sorcery for 1 green mana. Whenever you play a creature spell, I believe that's technically cast a creature spell. I'm just reading the card.
I looked up Oracle text on this.
You draw a card. So whenever you cast a creature spell this turn, you draw a card. Champions of Kamigawa, like I said 14 years ago, it's a $14 card because I believe it sees Modern play, if not some Legacy play as well.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it in Modern.
And this is one of those cards that's a little bit deceptive. I think people look at it and they're like, it's fine if I ran some kind of a elf ball deck or a really heavy creature aggro deck. Here's the thing about it, though. If this was like a $3 card, I would probably be running it in a ton of my green decks. You don't need to cast 6 creatures in a turn to draw 6 cards to have it worthwhile. If you spend 1 green mana and cast 2 creatures,
it's better than Harmonize.
Even if it's
amazing.
1 for 1. Even if it's 1 for 1,
it's not terrible then.
You're netting 1 card for 1 mana.
Right.
In green.
It's a cantrip at that point to dig down further. And oftentimes in Commander, people use things like Urza's Bauble or even Get Probe just to look at someone's, just to have the spell in their graveyard or something, or to cast a thing to thin their library, whatever. I mean, this is still a really useful card in the worst case scenario, and it's got a really high ceiling too if you are looking to put it in the right deck.
Now, I know this card is probably going to see a reprint.
Eventually it will, yes.
And I don't think it's going to be in a master set. I think it's going to be when we go back to Kamigawa. Because, as I said, I've been very active on Twitter. I follow Morrow on Twitter, and he put up a thing about that where people want to go back to, and
everyone always
like 70 or 80%
Kamigawa.
people voted for Kamigawa. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see something like this or this exact card or something similar get reprinted into Kamigawa.
I definitely think it would be a problem in Standard. In a core set, if they put it in a core set and they weren't thinking it through, it could be an issue. But you could absolutely put this in a Battle Bond or Conspiracy kind of set and not have any problems at all.
Yep.
So that's I could see it showing up there as well. There's a lot of avenues for a reprint, but it could really use one, and I think you will see a lot more EDH representation because it's only in about 1,000 decks right now, and I think a lot of that's number 1 price and number 2 because again you don't see this card in binders or on store shelves very often.
I wonder if it might also be because it's a sorcery spell.
Yeah,
if it were an enchantment, well, that would just be broken if it was an enchantment.
But even if it was like instant, it might probably see more play.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Max, number 7.
Number 7 is Greater Oromancy. This is a enchantment for 1 and a white, and it reads, other enchantments you control have Shroud, and enchanted creatures you control have Shroud. This was last printed in Shadowmoor, which was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And roughly is around $44 right now. This is just Enchantress.deck.
Yep.
It goes in. Ural, Bruna, Sigarda.
Any of the 3 new ones?
Any of the 3 new ones.
I definitely think it is overpriced for what it does.
I 100% agree with you.
What format plays it? It must show up somewhere else.
It's got. I didn't even look up this one, but I mean, it's so narrow. The big thing that I found difficult for them reprinting it is it's going to have to be in a supplemental set.
We did
because of the Shroud keyword.
What's kind of weird is there's a bit of an Enchantress sub theme in Ultimate Master, so it would have been a good place to print it, but we didn't get it. I actually don't run it in my Sigarda deck anymore because there were too many situations where I then couldn't cast enchantments on Sigarda.
Yep.
Which wound up being an issue. So I think it's not as good as people think it is maybe in EDH.
I think it would be great. I actually had a guy come into the store yesterday who was building Child of Alara, 5-color gods.
Okay.
And this would definitely be a card that you would want because all your gods are enchantments.
Sure.
So it gives them Shroud.
You're probably not going to be suiting them up.
Yep.
You're just giving them Shroud so no one else can touch them.
Yep.
And in something like Bruna, where you're not targeting Bruna, you're just like the
her ability
are magically appearing on her from your hand or the graveyard. It's great there too. But yeah, $44 is a lot of money for that card. What do we have next, Christopher?
Hall of the Bandit Lord.
Yay!
We're going back to Kamigawa again.
We have a good amount of Kamigawa cards and Lorwyn cards in this list.
You know, and I'm trying to rack my mind, but I swear to God, we have a full box of Champions of Kamigawa at the store. I really think we do.
there is one on the shelf, yeah.
And now I'm seeing all these, and I'm like,
I should crack.
I might have to crack a couple of these packs.
Aren't those packs like $20 a piece though?
We're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out.
So, for everyone who doesn't know, Hall of the Bandit Lord is a legendary land. Now, that doesn't
matter too much.
Not in Commander. But it comes into play tapped. Now, you tap it, pay 3 life, add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool if the mana was spent on a creature spell, so you can use it for other things. Whereas,
yes. You don't have to use it for
whatever that legendary land that you use in Reki, I do believe only works for creatures.
Yeah.
Ontadaki, the Cloud Keeper.
Yep. I can only use that mana for creature spells.
Yep. This one actually allows you to do different things with it. So if you do use it on a creature, that creature gains haste. Now, this card's like $18, which is a little ridiculous in my opinion, but it can go in any deck.
It's kind of like Concordant Crossroads, where you're giving stuff haste and green. This lets you give it in every other color that doesn't have access to haste.
And that's one of the reasons I think it's so expensive, is because it could go in any deck.
It's so good.
So
it's so good.
Max has begun running. Well, when we were having this conversation on this show, I don't know if it was a year ago or a year and a half ago, when we discussed this card, I think on a Utility Lands show. I'm like, this would be great in a deck with where your commander has lifelink, because you just get the life back. And Max,
light bulb.
Like literally, Max is like, what? and you put it in your deck shortly thereafter.
I think I ordered one while we were recording.
I think so. And then what's been your thoughts on Hall of the Bandit Lord since you've added it to that deck?
Since I put it in Jamoka, it is a powerhouse. It is actually won me games because Jamoka costs 10 or 12 after a few going back to command zones, and it's like, you know what? 3 life. I'm gonna get that 3 back. I'm gonna net 2 just off of Jamoka. And if that's the last 5 damage I have to get through to kill someone with command damage,
so be it.
I will pay 3 life even if I'm at 4. It's like, okay, they can't do anything once Jamoka hits the field, so might as well try.
Bolt you in response to the cast.
Right.
Yeah, but people forget to do that.
I think you and right, yeah.
Yeah, me, Dean Goody, and I have had
a
big conversation about this card about 2 weeks ago, where it's like, he's like, if it wasn't $18, I'd have 4 playsets of them.
Dean Goody of Command Time. I saw that conversation. I was just going to mention that because he likes the card a lot too.
Yeah. And he puts it in decks that don't have lifelink because it's a haste enabler. Like,
that's just playing it safe. But if your commander is remotely aggro or you remotely care about commander damage,
Krenko.
That
Tap,
kind of stuff.
boom.
You don't even think about that. At least, in Krenko, at least you have access to Flamekin Village, and red has haste anyway.
The more that you could put in there,
the more
the
merrier. Absolutely. For sure. Such a really, really good card. We kind of have a couple honorable mention cards. And one of the ones I'll kind of tag here along with this is Boseiju, who shelters all.
Yay.
Which is from the same set. It's the same price. It's $18. It did show up from the Vault Realms. And it's kind of the instant or sorcery version of this spell, where you can pay 2 life and make a spell uncounterable. That's also really strong. And whenever I've seen someone play that in a deck, I'm always like, ugh, now something's going to come out right now that's going to be a problem, and it always is.
Yep.
So I didn't want to do both because they're very similar, but we'll kind of use that as an honorable mention here right now.
I run both of those in my decks.
Why I try to, when people come up to me and ask me about deck ideas or like cutting cards from a deck, I try to, with counter spells, I try to have them take cards like Unsubstantiate or other things that actually don't counter the spell but return it to the hand. It does a
lot of work being able to bounce a spell to their hand or put it on top of the library or exile it.
Because countering that's fun and all, but I mean, if you can get around other keywords, then might as well do it.
That makes a big difference. Number 9 on the list, Idyllic Tutor, another Lorwyn card. This was in Morningtide 10 years ago. It's at $27 right now. And it's a sorcery for 2 and a white. Search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. This kind of is the same situation as Greater Ormancy. Any Enchantress deck would probably run this. But there's also plenty of decks that probably just have a density of enchantments, whether it's 8 or 9 or 10 in the deck that just do things. Like if you're in a token deck, if you're playing in a Selesnya token deck and you're running Peril Lives and Doubling Season and Anointed Procession and things like that completely, Cathar's Crusade, whatever, that completely basically let you win the game at some point. Enlightened Tutor's great, but why not have a second way to go get those enchantments?
And this being sorcery speed, it puts it in your hand versus Enlightened Tutor putting it right on top, so everybody knows.
Everybody has to see what it is with Enlightened Tutor. This time you just go grab it. You have to reveal it.
You still got to show everybody, but
you also have the chance then for somebody to do something. I have buried cards that Max has put to the top of his library with Enlightened Tutor before by deglamoring something after it resolves. This just goes to your hand. And technically, when you think about Enlightened Tutor, it costs you a draw.
It does.
You're drawing the card like this, you get the card to hand, and you still draw it. So, I mean, I think Enlightened Tutor is probably a better card, but this isn't a bad card by any stretch of the imagination.
Due to it being so narrow, I could see it needing a reprint to lower the price a little bit. But I compare this to a Demonic Tutor.
It's a luxury item.
It is luxury. I think it's one of those cards that needs a little bit heftier price tag so that not every John and Sue are playing it.
I would agree. I mean, and I think at the end we're going to discuss pricing a little bit here, but not everything needs to be a $2 card either.
This is another card that I don't see a whole lot of.
No,
when I got mine, it took me a long time hunting it down. I had to do a lot of trading online with a guy in order to get this because he was very stubborn on what he wanted for it and all that stuff.
Yep. I've seen these cards come and go through my collections just because it's a $30 card. Yep. I have no use for it, so why am I holding on to it when I can get $30 worth of cards from someone else? But it is. I think it is. I agree with both of you. It's a luxury card that it's going to be hard to reprint in the future because of how narrow it is.
And they don't like putting tutors for the most part in standard sets, so you don't need to show up in a master set.
Good tutors, anyways.
So or a supplemental product.
Supplemental product of some sort. Number 10, Max.
Number 10, hey. Number 10 is Leyline of Anticipation. This is an enchantment for 2 and 2 blue, and it has the fun pre-game effect of if it's in your opening hand, you can put it on the battlefield for free. And it also lets you cast everything as though it had flash.
So it's Vedalken Orrery as an enchantment in blue.
In blue.
Now, Leyline of the Void we could have mentioned here.
That's the one that I was so confused. Like, I literally have a rant about that written down.
The only reason I put most of this list together. The only reason I didn't pick Leyline is it has had one reprint. This has had none. Leyline was in...
But Void is still, what, a $40 card? Even with its reprint?
There's also, though, the thing I'll say about that is, as good as Leyline of the Void is, there are things that mostly do what it does. There's multiple of those, whereas Leyline here, there's Vedalken Orrery, that's it.
Yeah.
Leyline of the Void absolutely is a card that we'll kind of do an honorable mention here as well. Both of these Leylines are definitely super strong and could show up in multiple sets, and the price probably doesn't go down much either.
Isn't the white Leyline stupid expensive too?
It's also pricey because it gets played in
Boggles.
It gets played in Boggles.
Multiple decks.
Yeah. Right.
Because it just says, bye, Burn player.
I've honestly seen Storm players playing this out of their sideboard when Burn becomes relevant because they just auto-lose to Burn.
Right.
And they just go, okay, beginning game, Leyline. And the Burn player goes, okay, all right.
Game 3. So this was last printed in Magic 2011. Like Dana was saying, that's why we didn't include the other two because they were in a master set. This was sitting at $15. And I think Vedalken Orrery's right around there as well, if not higher.
Vedalken Orrery's $20 now, I believe.
Thank you, Josh Leaquai.
Thank you, Josh Leaquai. Yeah.
Shout out.
Because I had a bunch of them from Conspiracy.
Yeah.
I literally think the only reason it's like that is because it was in the... Because it's only printing Conspiracy, correct?
And Mirrodin.
Vedalken Orrery was in Mirrodin as well.
Or was in Mirrodin as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas Leyline was only in M11.
But I can see Orrery being more expensive because it's an artifact.
It goes in every deck, too.
This is blue.
Go in every deck.
And my big argument to you two about this with us saying that we need this reprint is that it is very limited to the color of blue.
It is. Yep.
And blue already has so much stuff that has flash and instant speed.
But it also does synergize with that nicely because it lets you, if you're already holding up mana for counter spells and holding up mana for some of your flash stuff.
Yes, that I see. Yep.
It dovetails nicely with letting you do everything at instant speed.
Yep.
I think I played against one of these pretty recently, and it wasn't Dana, because you run it in Talrand, I think.
I run it in Talrand and in Asperia. I've got it in two decks.
I knew you had it in Talrand. I forgot about Asperia. But the deck I was playing against was one of the new Bant enchantment people.
Okay.
And he just used it to cast auras as combat tricks.
Yeah.
I'm like,
oh, nice. Yeah.
That works.
Yeah. And it's an enchantment, so when you play it, you draw a card, too.
And when you have green in your mana colors, the double blue doesn't make it hard at all.
Right. Yeah. All right. Number 11, Chris.
Let's talk about the most expensive tutor.
Yeah.
I do believe it is.
Yes.
In Imperial Seal. So for 1 black mana, sorcery speed, it is Vampiric Tutor. Identical to Vampiric Tutor except for its sorcery speed. So you search your library for any card, shuffle your deck, and put it on top of it, lose 2 life. So let's talk about price on this bad boy. For only seeing 2 printings, it was a Judge Fell, and I don't remember what the first set was.
Portal 3 Kingdom.
Was it Portal 3? Okay. So we're looking at $500.
$500 for the Portal version.
And $190 for the Judge Foil, which is still relatively expensive.
Yeah.
And the Judge Foil's pretty recent, like in the last 2 years, I think.
Yep. I think so, yeah.
This one I would love to see a reprint for personal reasons. Now, for any other reason, I could care less. It can stay where it's at. I don't want everyone to have this card.
It's also not that great of a card.
No.
Like, Vamp Tutor's better. Demonic Tutor's probably better. There's a lot of decks where Diabolic Intent, is that the one where you sacrifice a creature?
Yep.
Diabolic Intent's probably better in a lot of decks. It's power-wise, it isn't the issue. It's just the scarcity of it and those decks where they want every tutor. It's the same thing. We also have kind of an honorable mention here for Grim Tutor and Cruel Tutor. Grim is 200 and Cruel Tutor's 40. They're in the same boat. They've had 1 printing, and they're worse than Imperial Seal. So they're definitely down the list. But those combo decks that want every single tutor want every single tutor. So that's what the price in all of these is.
Yep. I really like the scarcity of it because it becomes more of a centerpiece type of deal.
Yeah.
Because, you're giving it to your judges who work really hard. That's a show topic I would love to do someday, talking about how judges are underpaid. But that's another thing for something else.
Yeah. Judges, artists.
Yep. I think it's something great that they did for the judge program. And then Portal 3 Kingdoms. Like, I've never opened a pack of Portal 3 Kingdoms.
No, yeah. And like, even among all the collections I've bought and gone through, I dare say I've found more Antiquities and Arabian Nights cards than I have Portal cards.
Yep. The most I have for Portal 3 Kingdoms are lands.
Yeah.
The basic lands. Yeah. I don't ever see anything else.
I don't even see many of those.
Yeah.
All right. Number 12 on this list. Marrow-Gnar, also from Champions of Kamigawa, 14 years ago.
Why does Krapagawa have all these expensive cards?
I don't know. It's one of those sets. I think this is where Ixalan's going to be in a couple of years.
Wasn't Champions the final set of Kamigawa?
The first one.
I think it was the first one, yeah.
Was it? Okay.
It's Champions, Betrayers, Saviors.
I was going to say, because if it was the final set, I could understand because a lot of people were over it.
Right, yeah. Well, in Marrow-Gnar, it's a commander of a rat deck, or it's a card you want to run in your rat deck.
Yep.
And that's it. Like, there's no other use for this. No one else wants it for anything else for the most part. But it gives all your rats fear, and you can sacrifice a rat and put X 1/1 black rat tokens into play, where X is the number of rats you control. And with the new, what's the rat out of Dominaria? Rat Colony, which cares about total rats that you have. This is insane in a rat colony.
I was actually going to bring that up because I think I have like 60 of them now.
Do you? Nice.
So we're just going to do this right now. Shout out to Patrick Spola, Ginger King of the Rats.
King of the Rats, yeah, who has a Marrow-Gnar in his deck. And we did not put one in the deck we gave away because it was $19. So,
this card, I'm absolutely baffled why it's so expensive. Now, as buying for your commander, I understand paying $18 for a commander card, like the commander itself. This one's so narrow, it really should not be that high.
It should not be, since it only appears in those rat decks.
Yeah.
And if you build the rat deck, that's the main reason I wanted to include this one. Is I'm like, man, if you're building rats, that does just suck. This is $20 or closing in on it. So it's one I think those players particularly throw them a bone. They could use a cheaper Maronar.
Yeah, and I bet you if it gets reprinted, it's a $2 card forever after that.
Yes, for sure.
So I'm gonna kind of screw the order up here, and I'm just gonna pass this one back to Dana because I think has a very high horse he wants to ride about this.
My exact words on this other one is, this is more of a wish list card for you than anything, isn't it?
It is, except it is for a couple reasons. So number 13 in the list, Mystic Remora from Ice Age. 25 years ago.
And it is only like a $2 card.
It's only a $2 card, although it was a 20-cent card for many, many years.
Well, if you'd be quiet, it would have stayed at 20 cents.
I don't think I can take all the blame for talking about it, although I love the card. It's in 13,000 decks in EDH Rec. And it's one of the second oldest. It's the second oldest card in this list after number 17, which we will come to in a little bit. It has no modern border printing. It has no foil. And it needs a version with new Oracle text because the text on it right now says whenever an opponent plays a spell, and it says target opponent, and it's not target. It's whenever an opponent plays a spell.
Yep.
So it's just a card that needs, number one, we need just a updated copy so I can get a foil for a deck.
Don't waste time buttering this bread. You flat out just want the foil nothing else.
I want a foil.
I will agree 100% that I think that the text needs to be updated for newer players.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe that's the reason it sees a lot more play now than it did a few years ago. But I bet for a long time there, people would like pick it up and go, it's only one person. How many cards am I really going to draw? So they didn't put it in decks.
Yep.
So I think that's misleading. It should get one more printing. So Max, back to you.
I'm going to take the next two.
All right.
Sorry, Chris. So number 14 is Oracle of Moldiah. It is 3 and a green from Zendikar. It's a creature elf shaman. You get to play an additional land on each of your turns, play with the top card of your library revealed, and then you can play the top card if it's a land. So it's a better Corsair Crufix.
Yeah.
It's literally Corsair Crufix and Azusa piled into one.
Because you can actually play more than one land.
Yep.
And Corsair's great. And this is a better Corsair.
So this was printed again in Zendikar 10 years ago, and it's $30.
Yeah.
That's why I don't have one. It's $30.
I used to have a couple of these.
It's in...
And then it went to $30.
And I don't see no one's trading these, not in binders.
No, because majority of them are in decks.
Exactly. And like every Windgrace deck that got built, 5 months ago when that set came out, wants an Oracle of Moldiah. In addition to people who just generically want it in their green deck because it's a good card.
Right.
Or if you're playing an elf deck, or if you're playing a shaman deck, like there's just a gazillion decks this thing can go in.
It would be so nice if it had flying, because then I could put it in Jamocha.
It would be perfect if it was a flying elf shaman.
For me, this card is justified in its price. I literally think it is a $30 card.
Its power level certainly justifies the price.
Now, I have no problem with this getting reprinted, because they reprinted Azusa. She tanked down to like a $7 card. She's upwards over 20 again.
Yeah, this bounces back after the reprint. For sure.
It just offers it easier for people to get their hands on to begin with.
If anything, this is more universally playable in Commander than Azusa is.
Does this see Modern play? Is that another reason why it's $30, or is it mainly Commander? I'm asking Chris.
I've seen it in a couple Modern decks, not often, but I have seen it.
Okay.
So number 15, Max. This one too.
Number 15 is everybody's favorite Rhystic Study.
I saw you discussing this on Slack the other night a little bit. I didn't
we
read
were.
what you said.
So for the few people that don't know what this card is, it's an enchantment for 2 and a blue, and it says whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless they pay 1. It is the most annoying card in the game.
It absolutely is.
It was printed back in Prophecy 18 years ago. It was also printed in the Commander's Arsenal set 7 years ago. So currently the non-foil version from Prophecy at common, it's a common from Prophecy, is $15.
Jeez.
I remember picking mine up when they were like $3 a piece.
Yep.
So I have quite a few of them.
Well, I remember when they hit $3 a piece, me going, these are $3? Like $3 seemed shocking at the time.
I bought my Prophecy one at GP Minneapolis 2 years ago for $35
for the foil.
For the foil Prophecy one. But the Commander's Arsenal one, which is foil, same art, is $43. For those interested if you want the original printing, the Prophecy one is about to crack $100.
Ugh.
all because it did not get reprinted in Ultimate Masters or Battle Bond. Those were the two sets everybody thought it was going to be in.
And it's too expensive to be in a Commander product now.
Yes.
So you basically have to wait for a Master set or wait for it to be maybe a box topper kind of thing. It is in dire need of a reprint.
I mean,
this card should not get a reprint.
Well,
I agree with that. I 100% agree with you.
Well, here's the thing, right? It's in need of a reprint because of cost, but it's a super annoying card.
Right.
I don't have it in all my blue decks because I don't want to be annoying in all those games. So I don't have it in all my decks.
I have no problem with the person being annoying. It's when they miss it, and then they say they miss it, and they're going to go draw, and then I have to be the mean person and say, no, you missed
your
it.
triggers.
And then they get all flustered, and that might just be the competitive side of me, but I know the rules really well in and out, and it's like, no, you missed it. If we had a judge call, they'd be like, beneficial trigger, look at their opponent and be like, do you want them to have that trigger? And the opponent's going to be like, nope.
Right.
Well, also part of it is it's such a persistent thing. It's every turn, every spell. Like you should be pay. If you're running this card, pay attention.
Yep.
Exactly.
Or if you don't want to pay attention, don't run it. But pick one or the other.
There are times when I play it. I mean, if I ever play blue, I play it.
It's fantastic.
And if I miss it, I'm just like, whatever. I'll just wait for the next
exactly.
one.
I mean,
that's my attitude. It's like, it's my fault. I missed it. I don't.
As long as I net like 2 cards by the time it's my turn again, I'm like, cool.
Well,
I made out.
That's how good it is. You only need to net 2 cards in your head. I mean, like.
I only run it in one deck I have because it's foil, and it's in that deck because that deck's almost foiled out. But,
Sure.
I mean, we're lucky because our shop is pretty good about, you can just draw the card. Like, the opponent is just going to be like, I need all my mana, draw. But, I mean, I'm with you, Chris. I don't like being the bad guy, but I think out of all the bad guy things in Magic, I like being the bad guy on this because I have actually won games because people have not just like on my turn, like my turn ended and they go, oh wait, did you pay extra for the 3 spells you casted during your second main phase? No, I didn't, but you missed all those triggers. So my turn's over, go. And they like, what do you mean? I'm like, you got to pay attention.
Yeah.
Like I
don't ever ask the person, you're going to pay 1 extra for that. I just go Ristic Study trigger. If they're like draw, then I just draw. So it's just, I say the trigger's on the stack. If you want to, go for it. If not, whatever.
Right.
And frankly, I would wager at some point this has been put in a set somewhere, and the response from the team was, "Oh, it's so annoying. Let's just not reprint it." Like I guarantee that's happened at some point.
You know, if this were to get reprinted in a Commander precon, this is where the money for reprints for that deck is gonna go.
Well, right, that's a problem. At $15, it's already like looking at one of the most expensive cards in the deck. Were it to be in a Commander precon,
they'd have to up the rarity or something on it to make it worth it, type of deal.
It's a good card, though.
So good.
Chris, what's next?
We have a wonderful card that was actually just printed a couple years ago.
Yeah.
In Song of the Dryads. So for everyone who doesn't know, this is probably the best green removal spell ever printed.
I mean,
probably the only good green removal spell.
Yeah, Beast Within.
I don't know. I think this one's better.
At sorcery speed.
Yeah.
It's the best one at sorcery speed, definitely, I would say. And at the long-term impact of this on games. I've won games, or at least I've made someone else lose a game because they've played their commander that their whole deck revolves around and passed the turn, and I go, Song of the Dryads on your commander, and they're just done. So, yeah, it's an amazing card.
Yep. So for 2 colors and a green, it's an Enchant a Permanent. Enchant a Permanent is a colorless forest land. Now,
not just enchant creature or enchant...
permanent.
Permanent, anything.
Bye-bye, Maze of Ith.
Right. Or Ristic Study.
Yeah.
So printed in Commander Anthology and Commander 14. So was that 4 years ago now? 5 years ago?
Yep.
For 14,
Yep.
something like that. No foil printing. $8 for both of them. Personally, I'm completely content with the price on that. I think it's worth it.
I mean, I would like to see it be cheaper for people because I do think it's kind of an underplayed card as it is. $7 is a lot of money. But it's also not outrageous. Like, you know what? Not every card needs to be $2, and 7 isn't nuts, and this
is definitely a
not
card
unreasonable
that will get reprinted in a Commander set. I guarantee it.
Or
will.
Battle Bond set or something.
I think it'll be Commander because it originated in Commander.
Yes.
It's a green thing that's meant for Commander players, so it's only legal in Legacy. It's not legal in anything else.
Right.
So it will probably be in another Commander set. I understand why they didn't do it this last time, because Windgrace getting another removal spell would be stupid, and the enchantment deck having an enchantment removal spell would be
Right.
stupid. So I
Right.
understand why it wasn't in this last set.
But they've started reprinting Chaos Warp pretty regularly in the Commander sets. as a weird kind of, and this is kind of the equivalent of that in green where it's kind of off color pie.
Right.
So I definitely could see it showing back up again. I wouldn't mind a foil, but
right,
it's a really good card.
Yeah. And I foresee it dropping in price, probably going right back up again.
Exactly.
Because it's going to be hunted and every green deck's going to want it.
Yes. Number 17 on the list, Strip Mine. Strip Mine, everyone probably knows what it is. Tap to add a colorless mana pool or sacrifice it to destroy target land. It was printed in Antiquities, Anthologies, 4th edition, From the Vault Realms, and Zendikar Expedition. But it hasn't been pack crackable since way back in 4th edition. So
I'm going to argue that right now.
All right.
Expedition was pack crackable.
Yes, that's true. That's technically true. Yeah. I meant as a yes. No, you did get me.
No, because literally my notes say this is one that I will not argue at all with.
$22 for Strip Mine, but forever, including the early episodes of the show, were like put a Strip Mine in every deck. It's $4. It's not $4 anymore, and $22 is at the point where you can't just blindly jam it into every deck.
Well, and I literally think why it is so expensive is probably, and I don't want to knock on anybody, but it's probably due to people like us, content creators who have talked about this card to the dirt, and people have bought them out because it goes in any deck.
Well, there was a store I was at in central Wisconsin. I used to stop in once when I buy cards when I was driving through, and I was just BSing with the owner at one point in time when I was buying a few things as he was boxing up my stuff, because he had a stack of strip mines, probably 2 inches high in the case. I just was like, oh man, I got a ton of strip mines in there. And his comment back was, well, we sell a lot of Commander stuff here. And he's like, I can't keep, for the most part, strip mines in stock. I usually have to bring in about 25 or 30 a week just to keep up with demand.
Wow. And that was back when it was.
That was back
under $5.
Right, that was like 4 or 5 years ago when it was a sub $5 card.
The biggest problem with this card to me is it is banned in every format.
Except for Commander. Right.
Yep.
It's Commander only demand.
Limited, restricted in Vintage. So you only can run one. So there is no reason for it to be a $20 card and no reason for it not to see a reprint. Aside from the fact that it might hurt the set that it gets reprinted in.
But I mean, Wasteland didn't cause any problems when it was reprinted in
Eternal Masters.
But Wasteland requires a non-basic.
True.
Yep.
But you know what? If it screws up someone's draft a little, but even then, like, it's pretty tough to recur it in one of those master sets. Like, what are the odds of you grabbing a Crucible and your Strip Mine or something? That's just probably not going to happen. And if you do, maybe you deserve to win in your draft.
Like, this could literally be a GP promo. It could be something like that because it's not playable at the tournament.
Yes.
It's not playable usually in that format that they print the foil or the promo for, but it gets it more circulation of it.
And tons of them.
And kind of looking at it between the From the Vault and the Expedition, maybe that's what their plan is, to just every 3 or 4 years put it out in some kind of a bonus format like that. So,
I mean, I could see it being like a mythic, and then whenever they bring back the Masters stuff back, I could see it being one of the mythic lands.
I'm perfectly fine with it getting another white border printing.
Yeah.
If it drops the price, because
I think it should be in every. You need land removal lands in every Commander deck, and I think this is the best one. And once upon a time, it was kind of the great equalizer. Every new player, whether you were new or a veteran, you could afford to put a strip mine in your deck, and that's not the case anymore.
No. Which is, it's hard for new players because you pull out a strip mine and you start strip mining them, and then they're going to be like, well, how do I get one of those? And you're like,
well, you can't, man.
They're hard to find, and then they're like 25, 30 bucks, in the future, and it's just going to be, and it's going to turn them off of it. And then they're going to be, oh, strip mine, you're the expensive player that can play that.
Right.
Sorry, buddy, I bought mine at $3 a piece when they first were, really cheap.
And I still have multiples of them from when they were cheap.
Yep.
Because I got lucky and just happened to stockpile, but that's not everybody.
Nope. I only bought one, and I regret not buying more because I'm not really a land destruction player.
Sure. Next on the list, Max.
Chris can go because I took 2. So
all right,
Chris.
What do you got here?
I gotta make sure.
Pondering it.
I wanted to make sure I was on the right one because I started scrolling and then I had to scroll back up quick. So we have another Portal 3 Kingdoms card.
Ooh.
There's quite a few of these, honestly.
Portal and Kamigawa, yeah.
So this wonderful card is called 3 Visits. Now, I actually know probably a lot of people don't know about this card.
Yes. I mean, it's a functional reprint of Nature's Lore, essentially.
So for 1 and a green, you can search your library for a forest card. We're talking any forest card.
Not a basic forest.
Nope.
A
and
forest.
Just put it right into the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. So sorcery speed, Rampant growth, this is pretty much what it is.
Yeah. Although rampant growth is only basic.
Yep.
So this, which is why I said nature's lore. Nature's lore lets you get a forest not stuck to basics. So you can go grab your bayou. You can go grab your overgrown tomb.
Your Dryad Arbor.
Dryad Arbor, right.
Like no, I did not check the rarity of this card. I'm pretty sure it's a common.
It was a common in Portal.
So you guys ready for this? All you listeners ready for this? Let's talk about a $90 common card.
Woohoo! $90 for a functional reprint of the $2 Nature's Lore.
Yep.
But the decks that really want that ability will pay for the second copy of it. And that's what this is kind of the Imperial Seal thing, where there's not anything better necessarily, but there's a card that does the same thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is on the docket for a judge foil.
Sure, I can see that. And when it gets reprinted, the price, because if this had got reprinted in Ultimate Masters, it turns into a $5 card. Not this version, but the reprint version.
I know a lot of judges, L2s, L3s, all that stuff, and they don't really play too many like heavy constructed formats like Standard, Modern. They play Commander.
A lot of Commander.
Lots of Commander. So this would be a perfect card for a judge printing.
I could see it being a judge foil. They've been doing a lot of those Portal cards as judge foils. If it were to be in a master set, I think they have to flat out upship this straight to rare. I think for the draft,
Mythic, I mean,
I think Mythic is too much because
I'm gonna go on another rant here now.
You do want them in circulation, but like at rare, it doesn't screw the draft up.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that.
Uncommon would be like, okay, I'm just gonna draft every one I see.
I think it depends on the lands though too. If you have no lands to get in the draft, it's not gonna screw anything up. If you're just
I'll spend 2 mana to ramp me one every turn.
Sure.
If I draft 5 of them, at uncommon or something.
In my opinion, this card probably won't see a reprint in a supplemental set like that, due to the simple fact that Wizards has proven all content creators right with this Ultimate Masters that they do care about the secondary market.
Yes, they do.
And no matter what they say, this has proven it right with Ultimate Masters, with how they're doing box toppers and stuff like that to keep prices of cards stable.
And I broke down and bought one of these last summer.
Did you get one in Vegas or at Minneapolis?
After Vegas, no, right before Vegas. I want to buy one of. I had credit from Card Kingdom, and I'm like, I'm just gonna get it. I wanted one. I just went and got it.
I have one of the guys on my Magic team actually bought one of these, and I think he spent $70 on
for his Gitrog deck. I think. Yeah. Yep. I mean, if you want the effect, it's just a slightly better version of it to get that land untapped, and at some point it becomes there's so few upgrades left in your deck. It's one of those things that people want to do. So it would be nice to see both cheaper versions and a foil version out there would be welcome. Number 19 in the list, Worldly Tutor. I forgot hadn't had a reprint.
That absolutely baffles me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the one that was not in Eternal Masters.
Yeah, I think everyone was like, "Why?" And the only thing I can think of is back then the card was only like $7 or $8.
Well,
they also threw Natural Order in that same set.
That's where that slot got taken.
I think they've been picking like the better green tutors, whether it's Green Sun Zenith for a reprint or
Genesis Wave
or whatever. So this kind of gets left behind, but it was originally in Mirage and got reprinted in 6th edition. 21 years ago was the last printing. It's up to $15.
Yep.
There's also Sylvan Tutor, which is kind of the Imperial Seal to this card's Worldly Tutor. So that's sitting at like 50 right now, but it's worse. And I would settle just to see a Worldly Tutor reprint.
Yeah.
There's no modern border printing of this. There's no foil of it.
It won't hurt anything.
For sure. Absolutely not.
Because the card's not broken. I mean, I honestly think like Mystical Tutor and Enlightened Tutor work better in general.
I don't run this in any of my decks. I have multiple green decks, and I don't run it. Do you have it in any decks, Max?
I used to run it, but I don't know. It takes away your draw, like most of the other.
And you can. There's enough cards where like you can just put it straight into play, whether it's Natural Order or Green Sun Zenith or whatever.
Or Tooth and Nail.
Right? Yeah. Now, there's probably some decks where you want every version of your tutor for your combo win or whatever, and then I get that.
This card I've suggested to a lot of people who are actually I've had 3 people now come up to me about Enchantress decks.
Yeah.
And I literally suggest this card to be put in their deck, and they're so baffled by it. And I said, so for 1 mana, I get to tutor up my Mesa Enchantress or my Verdurian Enchantress, play it the next turn, and get my card draw engine online.
Because you need your engine online.
Yep. And they're like, oh, I never thought about that. I'm like, yes, you need something to find those cards because until you get your card draw engine online, you're kind of the lackluster deck.
You're the ugly duckling.
Yep.
But even then, Green Sun Zenith, although it's not, you can still go get the Enchantress. If you're getting an Argothian Enchantress, you can just put it straight into play and skip that top of your library. But even
it still costs you 3 mana, right?
Still costs you 3, but it's probably worth it to not lose your draw spell. So,
yeah. But the way I look at it is, if you're going for an Enchantress,
2 copies. You want both ways to get it.
You play the Enchantress, even if you do lose your draw. You play your Enchantress, then you play an enchantment, and you still get your draw out of it.
Right.
You play your Concordant Crossroads, and you draw off of that.
Right, exactly.
And then you swing with your Enchantress.
Who's a 0/2?
Yes.
Yep.
You
I don't think any.
You get that Druid's Repository trigger. That's what you're doing.
All right, Max, what's the last card on our list here?
Number 20, Zhao Dun the One-Eyed. Our final card from Portal 3 Kingdoms. So again, 19 years ago. It also had a judge printing in 2012. The P3K version is about $115, and the judge foil is $60. And for those who don't know, it is a legendary creature, human soldier, for 2 and 2 black. It has horsemanship, and then you can sacrifice Zhao Dun the One-Eyed and return target black card from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only during your turn before attackers are declared.
So it's a regrowth from your command zone.
Right.
Only doable in first main phase.
It's a combo piece. But it's a strong card and a strong combo piece. It's a unique, weird effect. It's just a neat card.
I literally think it's another luxury card, in my opinion.
To a degree. But I like it. I'm a fan of this card, and I would be very interested in maybe brewing a deck if I cracked one in a master set. But I'm not going to go mess around with it if I got to spend $60 on a judge foil just to try it out.
I find it odd that this is one horsemanship commander that didn't get a reprint in a commander set, because we had the mono blue one.
Yep, we had 2 mono blue ones. There was Sun Quan, Lord of Wu, and there was the
Kong Ming.
Is
the white one that flips your power and toughness.
I wonder if it's because it kind of breaks the color pie a
Maybe,
little bit.
yeah.
Because it's any black card.
Right, yeah.
Instead of just a creature. If it said creature, I guarantee this card would have been reprinted.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be. So, aside from the judge foil, this has not been printed in a while. I would like to see it just because I'd like to see someone build a deck, because it's like the Tyrant we talked about before. It's just unavailable and not in binders and not something the average person has access to. I would wager there's a ton of people who don't know this card exists. Maybe not people who listen to Commander podcasts, you're kind of into the scene, but like the average person in your shop doesn't know this card exists, I would say.
I didn't know this existed, to be quite honest with you.
So those are 20 cards we think are in dire need of reprint that have escaped all these master sets over the years. Is there any final honorable mention cards you guys want to throw out there? Or
I just have final thoughts in general.
What are your final thoughts, Christopher?
God, that still freaks me out.
Like I'm your mom.
Oh, that doesn't bother me.
It's the middle name.
So, I believe wholeheartedly that cards need to be expensive. I think it's what keeps the game the way it is.
It's a collectible card game, and if everything is 50 cents, it becomes much less collectible.
Now, I'm going to relate this back to another card game, because I've played pretty much all of them that are out that are high card games. Now, when Yu-Gi-Oh! First came out, they reprinted all their cards into the dirt.
Yes.
Everyone has a copy of this, and all the decks become linear and boring, and just, it's a very inbred field that you're playing against. So in order to keep that diversity, especially in Commander, because I don't want to see Commander die, which I think it would if everything got reprinted and everyone could get their hands on it, you need to have the expensive cards. So some people just can't, and it's horrible of me to say, and everyone can call me out on being a complete dingle fritz, but I think it needs to be that way.
I agree with you for the most part. I think cards need to be, and I think Wizards handles it well. They manage their card prices by doing reprints, but they do them in a careful way that doesn't tank their card value. Yep. So I think they handle that appropriately. I do think it's nice to see the cards dip. Actually, for me, as far as I'm concerned, the ideal is when they get reprinted, they drop by $10 or $12 or $15 and then start creeping back up again.
Yep.
So you have your chance to grab them, but for the people that then go spend their money on their cards, they then see those card values rise a little bit too until the next reprinting, and I think that's a good cycle. That's a healthy cycle for the average player.
I do believe that's perfect too. Like how we're talking about Imperial Seal.
Right.
If it got a reprint, I guarantee it's still going to creep right back up to where it was. But if you made it a very easily obtained reprint, that's a different story then.
Right. We'll talk about Liliana the Veil. Liliana the Veil has shrugged off 5 reprints now.
3, I think. No, 2.
There was 2 master sets and a GP, I guess. So
yeah, 3.
I mean,
4 now with her new
with the box top,
yep.
or the special edition one from the Ravnica. I think is that where it was?
That was not Liliana the Veil. That was Liliana the Last Hope.
Right now it would be 4 with the Ultimate Masters.
Oh, that's right.
She was printed in Innistrad, printed in Masters 17. She had the GP promo and now the new one.
And she just keeps bouncing back.
Yep.
I mean,
Tarmogoyf is another one that's always stuck at the $80 to $90 mark, and he's been reprinted in every Master set.
Yeah.
So certain cards like that I understand, but like cards that are only niche cards
or commander-ish only cards,
I don't want to see the field become inbred and very non-diverse.
I totally agree with Chris on this. I think cards need to have a high value for reasons. I mean, I'll use Ristic Study as a good example. It's $15. A high schooler isn't going to come to the shop and be like, hey, I need a Ristic Study. Oh, it's $15, $20. Oh, I can't afford that. It not only helps the established players make sure that their cards retain value and they can use the cards because they bought them when they were cheap, or they can afford them. And we've talked about that before on the show. Like, there's a difference between being a high schooler and being like, oh, I just want to, I can't afford a Liliana the Veil, but the adults with careers and whatever can. There's a big life difference there. But I also think it also makes you become a better deck builder, knowing that, cool, I can't put a Ristic Study in this deck, but hey, Mr. Grimora is $2.
Yep.
And that is essentially the same thing.
Just
maybe
with the downside of having to accumulative upkeep.
Right. So, like, it really makes you look at how you build your decks. Like, okay, I can't slap this auto good card in my deck. I have to find something until I save up that $20 to go buy one.
It gives you a bridge, too. Yeah,
right.
I agree.
It gives you goals. It gives you goals as a builder, a player. Like, cool, I want to go play Modern on Mondays at my shop because if I win so many games, I'm going to get store credit. And after a month of playing Modern, I might have enough to get that Ristic Study or get that Hall of the Bandit Lord. I think cards having a high value because they are extremely corner case uses, are just overall good in Commander, is a good thing.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, guys. Good to be back and recording with you gentlemen again. We'll have fresh content coming out every week through the end of the year for sure.
You didn't tell him we replaced him, did you?
Son of a... No, you didn't. No one told me that.
Who did I fire the other day?
Dana.
Was it Dana again? I don't remember why. I remember Max and I were talking about that. And I'm like, said something about firing, and I'm like, oh, yeah, who did I fire again?
We're just going to rotate Team D20 in for you for the next 8 weeks.
No, that's what I've been slacking the last few weeks. That's what it takes.
I did hear, what was it, Ponder Podcast or whatever
Ponder
it is?
Software?
No, Ponder Podcast is looking for a third person.
Yeah, they've got
an
opening. I should give them a call.
They do more like what?
I don't know what
standard?
they do. I just saw that.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.